Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Tuesday Tune-Up Trainings. Today we have Peggy Owens here to talk to us about donor appreciation. Peggy is a certified fundraising executive, which means she had to really show her credibility in order to get that certification. And she's going to tell us about some great ways that we can interact with and appreciate our donors. Our hope is that this is going to be useful for those of you who are planning ahead as to how you're going to be thanking your donors in the 2021 campaign. And for those of you who participated in previous years and perhaps in retrospect, you're thinking you could have been slightly more robust in thanking those donors, I think Peggy is also going to give us some tips on ways that you can reach out and make those reconnections. Okay, Peggy, take it away.
Thanks, Barb. I apologize. My voice is, I've been talking too much, so my voice is kind of strained, but I'm so excited to be here. I've been living in Park County off and on since the early 80s, and I've moved back to Livingston 4 years ago. I have extensive nonprofit and leadership experience. I was the CEO for Big Brothers Big Sisters. Good to see you, Tess, in a 3-county area. That was really my first big job in the nonprofit sector. Left that to work for Yellowstone Park, and then ended up working for Big Brothers Big Sisters of Alaska. When I started working for Yellowstone Association, now Yellowstone Forever, that's when I really started doing fundraising and diving more deeply into it. I'm the founding board chair for Montana Nonprofit Association, and I've been doing consulting for 11 years, and I'm so excited to be here. Part of the work I've done in consulting, at least early on, was with community foundations throughout the state, but I just think we are so fortunate to have Park County Community Foundation doing this work, and this Give a Hoot have surpassed all of my expectations the last 2 years. So I've got some slides, and I think that's what we'll go to next, right, Barb? I'm just gonna go to the slides.
And as questions come up, you can either say them out loud, or if you want to put them in the chat line, you can do that as well.
And why don't we just do that? I think it's more relevant rather than waiting till the end. Thank you. Is my slide up there now? Everybody can
It looks
see?
good.
Okay. You guys are so good at Zoom, I bet. I haven't been doing much Zoom lately. I don't want to brag, but it's been nice not to have to Zoom all the time. Okay, let's get this to go. Okay, Barb, I can't get this to move. We had a practice, maybe that's it. Okay, so outcomes for this session. I think if you guys have done any fundraising, you have some good ideas about why donor appreciation is so important. We're going to talk about donor retention, which is really a crisis in fundraising right now, that people are not staying with organizations after that first gift. We're going to look at creative ways to build relationships, and in particular, thinking about donor stewardship and why it's never too late to thank a donor. That's what Barb spoke about earlier. Learn about how to access the donor information on the Give a Hoot website. I'm going to turn it over to Barb for that. So if any of you have come to my trainings before, this is a familiar slide. Fundraising, as most of you know, is not just asking for money. Typically, it begins by thinking about who possibly we could ask for money, and just inviting them to learn about your organization in a variety of ways, maybe tours or a special event can do that, but really giving them information about your organization, cultivating the relationship a little bit, and then they're ready to give. They're ready to be asked. And they'll give or not. It depends on what they think of you and if your mission and your work resonate with them. Where we're going to start today is really more on the thank you and the donor appreciation end. And stewardship is really letting people know where their gift, the impact of their gift, what their gift did. But what I find, and I don't know if some of you find this too, if you get a lot of new donors, people who you didn't go through the earlier steps, like really talking to them about the organization and what you do, with those new donors, you might have to go back and do more invitation, more education, and really kind of go back to square one with them. I did want to say that studies have shown that it's really good to thank donors 3 times, and that might sound like overkill. Obviously, you don't send the same thank you letter 3 times. You can send a letter, and then I'm going to encourage you to call donors, especially if board members can make those calls. That's very powerful. If you can get phone numbers. But then send another update, send some kind of update. It could just be a donor update letter. It could be a newsletter with a note. Thank you for your continued support. And just really think about, that would be the stewardship piece. If you let them know in an update what their gift has done, or you show them through a newsletter or something like that. So, but this really is the traditional process. I think oftentimes with these giving events online, people start and they're not only a first-time donor, but they really don't have a lot of information. Maybe they gave because one of your board members invited them to do so. Any questions on this slide? Let me back up. Okay. So thank you letters. This is a basic donor appreciation tool. And one wonderful thing about online giving is if you give online, you'll get an acknowledgement right away. Your gift is received. That acknowledgement, of course, is coming from the Community Foundation. And what I, as a donor, am looking for is so I'm wearing my donor hat, just not my trainer hat, because I've given to a lot of groups through this kind of a platform. It's important that you also connect with the donor with the written thank you. As in general, and this is for all events, all thank yous, the sooner you send them, the better. Ideally within 24 to 48 hours. The saying that I learned was thank before you bank. And that's when you'd get a check in the mail. Of course, now you guys, it's online, so there's no check, but it's still really critical to get those out promptly. The more personal a thank you is, the better. That's really the key to successful fundraising, is personalizing, recognizing the donor in every way. And again, we're going to talk about that in a minute, about how important taking care of first-time donors are. But especially for those donors or donors who make a larger gift, make it personal. Add a PS, add a note. Thank you for giving again. This is so kind of you. It was so wonderful to get this gift from you. And it's good to mention what their gift will do. This is a little bit different thinking for some of you possibly. It's not what, I'll use Big Brothers Big Sisters as an example, Tess. It's like, now we'll be able to serve more kids, okay? Instead, say, your gift will help us find the right big for this child. Because of you, this child's life will be changed. So you just switch you say the same thing, but you switch it and make it more about the donor. Then your thank you letters, don't send the same letter out twice to anybody. I don't think anybody's doing that. I'm really not seeing that. But you can update it and make it more relevant to what's going on with your organization right now. Questions about that? Okay, I want to tell a little story. And just because I kind of enjoy things that maybe some people who aren't fundraisers don't. There was an online giving. I was living in Helena at the time, and I gave to 3 arts organizations. And from one, I got no thank you. From another, and this was online, same kind of platform through their community foundation. The second one, I got a so thank you. The third one, it changed my mind about the organization. I had been giving to them in the past, and I hadn't given them to them in a while. And it was like just such a great thank you. And it ended with inviting me to an upcoming event. I felt very special. I went to the event. The executive director was there. And so you can really make this letter move that person to being a lot closer to the organization. There's a lot of power in this if it's done right. So it's basic, but it has potential to do a lot more. So donor appreciation, first of all, if without it, you're not going to keep your donors. That's not going to happen. They'll go somewhere else. Or they'll wait until, they'll wait a while, then maybe give to you again. It's really an opportunity to create awareness about what you're doing. It's hard to get people's attention today. And so use every opportunity, max it out, do as much as you can. But if you do donor appreciation right, you can create awareness, get people more involved, and even raise more money. And then the stewardship piece is really about what the donor's gift does. And that deepens that relationship. It's like, it's just one of the most powerful things you can do. And I learned this from some top-notch capital campaign consultants when we were starting the capital campaign for Yellowstone Park. And it's just a really, really powerful tool. So focusing on new donors, donor retention rate, this is just a fact. The Association of Fundraising Professionals, I'm no longer a member, but I was on their Montana board for a while. It shows, this is just in 2020, how this donor rate continues to drop. It's dropped another 4%. And the main reason for that is new donor retention. And one thing that's wonderful with this platform that you will get, actually, you can see what the donors that gave this year, if they've given last year. You could do your own determination of donor retention from this event last year. I am a firm believer in board thank you calls. It's a great way to engage your board in fundraising. Typically, for most boards, fundraising is not their most favorite activity. Please go in the chat box if you have an organization where it is. I'd love to learn why and how. But donors who get a thank you call from a board member are more likely to give again and even increase their gift. This study was conducted years ago by Penelope Burke. I think a challenge for this event, and I think, and interrupt me if I'm wrong or correct me if I'm wrong, Barb, but we don't always have phone numbers for people who give through this platform. But you may be able to get them. You may have some resources. You may actually have a phone number on file. So try to get phone numbers when you can. But recently, this must have been a new study that I found when I was preparing for this. Penelope Burke found that a thank you call from a board member, you can read here, is to a newly acquired donor within 24 hours. It'll increase their next gift by 39%, and obviously encourage them to give again. Donor retention. It's a great metric for you to track if you're not doing so, not just with the hoot, but with your other fundraising activities. So touching donors, communicating with donors. I am still a believer in hard copy donor information. I know some people are going more for e-news, and that it just really depends on the donor, on their age. But be sure to keep donors informed 3 times a year. Again, make it personal if you can. Send a note, especially to your top donors. Probably all of you have Facebook pages. Keeping your website up to date is important. And just helping donors feel like their gifts are transformational, like your gift helped us change the world. Not always easy to do, and this is where creativity comes in, which is fun. This idea I actually got from Big Brothers Big Sisters of America, but it's having a stewardship calendar. And again, this is creative opportunities for you to think of ways that you can tell the donor how their gift was used. And it could be as simple as, when I'm bringing this stuff up, I know some of you are maybe full-time fundraisers, event planners, and you have time to do this. Some of you are from very small organizations, but do what you can and you'll get a return on your investment. So use your board if you need to, but like every month, could you do a little something? Or each quarter, could you do something to inspire your donors? Could you send them information? Could you invite them to a donor appreciation, a special event at a board member's home? Could you send them a holiday card? Could you give them a tour of a project that's done? Make it personal. And just remember, if I give you $25 through Give a Hoot, I do not expect a call necessarily from your executive director inviting me to lunch. Now, if I give you $1,000 through the Hoot, I would expect some special treatment. So tailor what you do based on the gift. And if it's a first gift, if it's a repeat gift, be a little strategic here. An example of this might be of your stewardship plan in August. Of course, you're going to send Hoot letters and you're going to call and thank donors. You're going to, as many as you can, you're going to have the board help with that. September, you might invite them for a tour of your facility. October, send a newsletter, and November, send your holiday appeal. That's how simple a donor stewardship calendar can be. It's never too late to thank a donor. If you're, and I thought that was interesting that the Penelope Burke looked at calling within 24 hours. Usually I tell boards and organizations, make that board thank you call when you can. If you can't make it for a month, fine. It's never too late. So if some of you, heaven forbid, did not thank your donors last year, and again, depending on the size gift, you may call and thank them now. You can say, we didn't have the staff we needed last summer, or we didn't have a good procedure for donor thank yous last summer. We do this year. And I just wanted to thank you now for your gift last year. And please consider giving to us again this year. And just have a conversation. If you're sending out a letter or an email inviting people to participate in the Hoot again, and you know you didn't thank them last year, this is not ideal, but it's better than nothing to say, thank you so much for your $100 gift to the Hoot last year. We hope you will consider supporting us again this year. Or you could send them a donor update with a personal note. Thanks for your gift last year. Please consider giving to us again this year. Those are most of the slides I have. Any questions? Or those are the slides I have. Any questions? So full disclosure, I did say before, I'm a fan of community foundations, and but one group to consider, giving the community foundation a special thank you for doing this, is just something to think about, because this is not easy. This is a lot of work, and it's just so exciting. Speaking of transformational, Barb, how this has transformed our community. Our nonprofit community in Park County. One more reminder, the more you invest in fundraising, either doing these thank yous right or calling donors, the more you can possibly invest time and money in donor appreciation and just fundraising in general, the more return you'll get. It's always worth your time. It's always worth your investment. And just do what you can to give a hoot about your donors. Thank you very much. Any questions now before I turn it over to Barb?
It looks like most folks are still muted, so if you want to ask a question, you'd need to go ahead and unmute, and you can also put it into the chat line. So while you are pondering if you have any questions, the next step is I'm just going to run through some slides as a reminder to as to how you would actually find your donations on the Give a Hoot site. Peggy, I think I need to screen share, and there we go. And let's see. Okay. Are you seeing my slideshow?
Yes, Barb, it's not full screen on my screen, but I can see it fine.
Are you seeing my, what do I want to say? Are you seeing the setup where you can see all the slides on the left, or you're just seeing the single slide?
We're
seeing your notes version.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not seeing the notes, but there, that's just the full screen.
Okay. I use two screens, so it's a little complicated. Okay, great. So we are now at the portion where I'm just going to be speaking for a few minutes to remind folks what goes on behind the scenes. This is just going to be a brief tutorial on how to access your donor information from the website. And if you still have questions afterwards, you are always free to reach out to me. So the first thing you want to do is navigate to the giveahoot.org website, and then you're going to want to go in that upper right-hand corner where it says login, and that will bring down, show up a drop-down menu, which we're going to see on the next slide. So here is the drop-down menu, and you want to be logging in as a nonprofit. When you get to that next page, you'll want to click on the blue button that reads Login as a returning organization. And there is where you're going to put in your email account. Now, I just wanted to pause here and say that when you get to that point, you will have officially transitioned from the front end of the site, which is the give-a-hoot.org website, to the back end of the site, which is hosted by Neon One. So things are going to start to look, just the format is going to look a little bit different because this is the back end of the site. So you, let me go back a second. So you log in, and then once you put in your email address and click next, it'll give you a chance to put in your password. If you need to reset your password, just click where it says forgot password, and it will walk you through that process. Now you should be at your organizational Gives Day dashboard, and you will want to click on the My Donations tab to access the donation details. And I just wanted to point out most of the events, so the name of the company that hosts this website is Neon One. Most of the events that they do are single day events, so their language is set up to refer to that. So they talk about the Gives Day, the Giving Day, and as you know, here in Park County, we roll a little bit slower in the summer, so we have a Give Month. But anything that says Gives Day or Giving Day, just insert month and you should be fine. So there's those tabs on the top, and you're going to want to click on the My Donations tab. That is going to take you to a page that lists all of your donations from the Give a Hoot campaigns. And then there are 2 ways that you can export those details. You can either select a date range. So if you just want to know who's given in the last weeks, you can make sure you get those cards out to the most recent donors, or you can also click export on the upper right-hand corner there, and it will bring you an export. It'll download a Excel sheet with all of the information. So you now have an Excel sheet. So what I did is click the export button, and you now have an Excel sheet of all of your donor data. This is for the Community Foundation, so I did gray out the specifics, but I definitely wanted you to see what's back there, particularly for folks who either didn't participate in last year's, any of the previous year campaigns, or perhaps somebody else did this piece for you. So I do want to draw your attention to the fact that there are multiple columns of information available, and just depending on how big your what I'm forgetting the word here. Depending on how zoomed in you are on Excel is going to determine how many columns you can see. And I will say in past years, I have answered a lot of conversations that have involved me saying, well, just scroll a little bit further to the right and you will see the additional columns. So I did just want to call your attention to that. This is the slide that shows columns A to O. So it has the transaction date, the amount of the donation, the first and last name, their email, their phone number, their address information, and whether or not it was an anonymous gift. And I have a question for the anonymous status. Why are there blanks? So when people do sometimes choose to give an anonymous gift, I always take that as a positive because it means you are released from having to send them a thank you. But when they choose to be anonymous, then you're not going to get any of their contact information. So if you're wondering why is there not contact information for a particular person, and in this example, let me just navigate.
Actually,
that
Barb,
slide.
I have a separate, that was not my question. So why is there not, did people just not respond? And that's why there's a blank in column L. And you can assume that they're non-anonymous if it doesn't say no. That's my question. Or sorry, if it doesn't say yes.
That is an excellent question. And frankly, I have wondered that myself quite a bit. I think there is a chance when you're making a donation, you can either click, is this an anonymous gift? Yes, no. And maybe that's not required. So the people who make the point of saying no, that is a good question. I am talking to our tech support people tomorrow and I will ask them. So I have a better answer next time someone asks me. But even though that piece is perhaps not as tight as it could be, the part about them requesting anonymous status is pretty clear cut. So you don't have to worry about mistakenly sending an email to someone who's donating anonymously, because if they made a point of saying that, it should come through. I will say there was a point in the very first campaign where we made an error on iSide with manual entry, and somebody had requested to be anonymous and we forgot to check that box. And I had to circle back to the organizations and say, the thing they say in the courtrooms, please disregard that previous thing. And Peggy, you will be glad to know, even though we caught it pretty quickly, some people had already sent out their thank yous. Luckily, that donor was very gracious, but for the most part, rest assured that if it's showing up as anonymous, that is accurate information. Okay, so this is the portion of the download you're most likely to see, because this is all the columns to the left. So as I mentioned, this slide shows columns A to O. I did want to include this other slide, which shows columns L to W, just so you can see some of the additional details that are in there. So as we were just talking about, did the donor choose to be anonymous? There is a way where they are asked, are you a first-time donor? And that can give you some different feedback as to what you want to say in your acknowledgement to them. We do have a chance for them to say, how do they wish to be recognized? So particularly for donations that come through the website, they are using the same name that's on their credit card. And as I'm sure many of you know, there are definitely a lot of folks who the name that their friends call them is not the name on their credit card. And as a recipient of their donation, you want to be friendly with them. So please do pay attention to this, and when you're creating your thank you, be mindful of thanking them with the name that they're choosing to be recognized by, rather than if that is in fact different from the name that the donation comes under. This is also a way if people are making a donation as a couple, or they're making a donation as a family, or on behalf of the foundation, for example, that information is going to be in here. A new feature that we have for 2021 is when they make their donation, they're also asked, are they interested in volunteering? And if so, for how many hours per every 12 months? And you will you won't see that information for donors of previous years because that is a new field, but you will see that if anyone checks it for donors this year. There's also a column that says, did the donation come in through a fundraising page, which is part of our peer-to-peer fundraising campaign. We'll be talking more about that in our training next Tuesday. And if it did come through a fundraising page, it will say the name of the page and the name of the person who is hosting that page. And then also new this year, we have the donors have the opportunity to make a donation either in memory of someone or in honor of someone. And again, that is a really important piece of personal information that you would want to consider mentioning in your thank you. I just want to point out that the information about the donations is always available on your profile page, whether or not you choose to receive the donation confirmation emails. So this is behind the scenes for the Community Foundation page. And as you can see, in my case, I have selected not to receive those donation confirmation emails. You can scroll over to the right-hand side there when that little blue button that says manage settings, and you can click on there and you can request if you want to see the donation confirmation emails. You can change that anytime, but I just want to assure you that whether or not you have those emails flowing into your inbox, the information about donations is always there on your profile page. And then in closing, I did just want to do a quick overview of how donations arrive in the system. So if your donor makes their donation through the Give a Hoot website, they're required to enter an email address. And with that email address, they immediately receive a donor confirmation email. And then a representative of your organization also immediately receives a donation confirmation email indicating that the donation was made. Again, that is if somebody has selected that feature. So that's donations that come in through the website. Of course, that's operating 24/7, and that all happens immediately after they click submit on their donation. If the donor makes their donation by check, then the check and the donor form will arrive at the Community Foundation office. As some of you know, mail can be pretty variable. So there is, in the past years, there have been times when donors have said, well, I sent it a week ago and we're still waiting on it. We are excited to announce we're going to have a pop-up office if people want to bring their donation directly to our pop-up office, and we are going to be in the former Cluck location on Park. So you can drop off your donation and step on over to Gill's or the Murray Bar and get a cold beverage. But however the check arrives in our office, whatever route it takes, we then enter the information manually through the back end of the site. Once a donation gets entered, then that automatically triggers that email to go out, again, if somebody has selected to receive those. And then the donor, if they included their email on the donor form, then they will immediately receive the donor confirmation email, which is also the email that goes to the donor is also their tax receipt. If they did not include an email address, then at the end of the campaign, they will get a letter from us with their tax receipt information. I just want to point out this difference, because if you do have somebody who doesn't include the email address, then they don't immediately get that confirmation. So let me go back a few slides and, well, you can't really see it here because I have that area grayed out, but when you go to look at your donors, you will see folks who, you will see whether or not they submitted an email address. And so as to Peggy's point of thanking them in a prompt manner, just know that the folks who included an email address did receive an automatic confirmation through the system, and the folks who did not include an email address will not have received anything. Okay, that is the end of my slideshow. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen unless somebody has a question about a particular slide. Any questions on particular slides? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Okay, thank you everyone for hanging in there with the behind the scenes. I had another question for you, Peggy.
I
Guidance
saw
on,
that. May
Oh.
I make, I have a few comments about what you've just shared, and then we'll answer.
Oh,
Leah's
sure.
question.
Yes,
Um,
thank you.
I am so pleased that how you want to be recognized information is on there this year. And for those of you who maybe have gotten a gift from me, it's from Margaret, but nobody calls me Margaret. Not even, my mother. Nobody calls me Margaret anymore. It's just my name. But so I did ask Barb after last year, at least we gave a small gift to the Community Foundation to recognize both my husband and myself and to list me as Peggy. So that's a great thing. And that's something for you to think about with future fundraising activities. Give people a chance to say what they go by and be personal and use that name. Secondly, you're going to know if this person's a first-time donor. Have a plan in place for those first-time donors. It's hard to keep a hold of them and to grab them. I mean, treat them a little special, treat them differently, give them more information if you can. Number 3, the peer-to-peer fundraising data. When I was with Big Brothers Big Sisters of Alaska, we had a database that showed who knew this person and their connections. If you get that data and it's a board member's site, have that board member call, or they could just email their friend, have them call and personally thank that person. That would just move that relationship up a notch.
Peggy, can I just say something about that?
Yeah.
We haven't had a lot of those in the past, so I'm still very much have a learning curve about it.
Okay.
I believe the person who sets up the campaign, I believe there's a process in that they also get a notification if somebody donated through their peer-to-peer page.
That's very powerful fundraising. It's
Yeah.
not just people give to people, not just to causes. So that's very powerful, the peer-to-peer. With the memorial, there should be 2 letters, the thank you to the donor, and then letting the family know that this memorial was made. That really needs to, handling memorials is its own, you just need to be sure. You could call the person. We did receive another gift in honor of your mother or whatever it is. but be sure to let that family know as well. And then, yay, giving people a chance to volunteer. That's getting them more involved. So this is great. Okay, so I'm going to go back to, oh, I'm sorry, it's Janet's question. Janet's question is, Peggy, do you have any guidance on the demographics of the donors who like cards and calls and those who don't? I didn't have time since we're on this Zoom, but I think it'd be worthwhile, Jana, and you could do this on your own too, to go to that Penelope Burke research to see what she found. My slide that said that new donors were more likely to increase their gift if they got a call within 24 hours. That's new research that she's done. Penelope Burke does research every year on donors. So she may have the answer to that, but I have never heard that it matters that 20-somethings don't like to get a phone call and 50-somethings do. So it's just something, I don't have the answer to that. It's something to ask your donors, Janet. Would you mind, we usually call our donors, and if this isn't, if you'd rather get an email or a card, let us know. But I think that most people appreciate a phone call. It's just sometimes hard to get those calls, get those phone numbers. So
Peggy,
I'm really excited about this year again, Barb. And every year you're doing more.
Yes. Thank you. So in my experience, often if somebody doesn't recognize your number or isn't expecting your call, they just won't pick up. So I know when we're doing fundraising asks, you don't necessarily want to leave a message because you want to get a live person, but for a fundraising thank you, is it appropriate to just leave that as a message?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
sometimes board members go, whew, I'm
Right.
off the phone. I didn't have to talk to the person. I could just leave a message. So, but I do know, Janet, back to your question, that just think about what's happening in our society. Who has the money now? It's the boomers, it's the older boomers. And regardless of how unfair that is, which I really believe it is, those people are over 50. And so, they're going to want the calls, they're going to want the handwritten notes. Most donations are not that they're more generous, they're probably giving less of their incomes than some of us are, but less of a percentage. But the people who have the money are the older people right now. And so you need to kind of cater to them if you want to get those big gifts.
Mhm.
Thank you. That answers my question largely. I just, for me and my friends, like, we don't want paper anything for any reason. And we're trying to be environmentally conscious at our organization. So that was where it was mostly the mailings that I was curious about. So thank you.
Yeah. And, I think back, and this has been some time ago, and times change, but it's probably been 6 or 7 years ago. Kim Klein, she's a great fundraiser. Her books are great. Her online, I know Barb knows her from the Berkeley area, or not the Oakland area.
Mhm.
She said what she does is, somebody said, well, can I just start sending you stuff electronically? It saves paper, it saves us money. She said, sure. And she said the organization went out of her mind because she wasn't getting the newsletter, And what she did, she was traveling a lot of the time. She would save all the donor information and read it on the plane or something. So it's so hard. It's so challenging. Times are changing, but you should certainly give your donors the option to not get mailings. Absolutely. I support them.
Mhm. Great. As to Peggy's comment of recruiting board members or perhaps recruiting other volunteers in your organization to do the thank yous, one of the things that I think is very valuable about being able to do the Excel export is that the person and I was just meeting with the organizational leader yesterday about this. The person who is writing the thank you cards, they don't need to have access to the website. They don't need to have access to Excel because they don't even need to have email. I mean, you could obviously email them the Excel file, but you could also print out the Excel, and you could just pop it in the mail to them. So I know there is a lot of technology involved in this particular campaign, and not everyone loves the technology or is comfortable with it. And I think thank you cards is a great way to incorporate someone who wants to support your organization, wants to be involved, but doesn't want to go through all the login nonsense that's part of actually being on the website. But you can just do that download. And like I said, you could even just print it out and hand deliver them or mail them that sheet. So great. Well, thank you everyone for your attendance. We are at the official end of our time. I am happy to answer additional questions if you have any additional questions for me. I imagine Peggy might as well. I will be posting this recording and also sharing the slides for those of you who need to go back and have a reference, particularly if you have questions about how to get into the back end of your Give a Hoot profile.